Right. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining for today's session. Really excited to be joined by Jack Redley, who is a brand strategist and designer. And he's going to be walking us through the process that he uses with his clients to help them do their own branding. So yeah, it's something that isn't really spoken about in the no-code space, yet we're all building products, and all of those products will naturally have brands. But I feel like, including myself, we're all probably guilty of going into Canva, not really putting much thought into it, making a little logo, slapping some colors on it, and see you later. But actually, some extra thought, some extra consideration would probably go a long way to helping you connect with users. So that is hopefully what Jack will, through this process, kind of help us with. So we'll have some time for questions at the end, but of course you can ask during the session too. But without further ado, I'm going to pass over to you, Jack, to get us started.
Awesome. Thanks for the intro, Max. And yeah, great to be in front of you guys. It's awesome. I've heard so many of you talk and do, show me your projects in demo day. So it's really cool to speak to you all about branding specifically. So let's start off by just a little intro from me. So I actually helped Max with his branding as he was growing this community, and was kind of like, I've got this thing, but I don't really know how to control it, and I don't really know like what my social media presence should look like, and who am I really talking to? I've got a huge array of people in this community and stuff. So I helped him with that, but I've basically worked with about 20 clients so far over the last few years to really dig below just the visuals, because I think that's something that, as Max mentioned, people kind of, the fun stuff is the visuals, and it's actually really crucial to understand kind of the plumbing before building the house. Where is this brand going to fit in the kind of ecosystem of brands that are out there? So as Max again mentioned, you guys are all here creating cool stuff, products, services, but you might not have a clear idea about how to make something that's cohesive. You might waste a lot of time like making Instagram posts and all sorts of different marketing material, and you're like, oh, maybe I'll use pink for this one, maybe I'll use blue, like I don't know what type, like maybe I'll just use Arial or whatever. You're not really sure about what the brand identity is and why it is that. So maybe that's something you're struggling with. So why am I here talking to you? Because I want to talk to you about what a brand actually is. I want you to think about questions that maybe you haven't thought about so far, whether you're at the seed idea, you've got like a kernel of an idea, or you've actually got something that's up and running, but you may not have considered these things. And then how does those questions, or the answers to those questions, relate to actually making a brand identity and resources and things at the end? So first of all, I want to talk about what a brand is, or more specifically, what a brand is not, because I think people get so confused as to, what a brand actually is. I think the most common misconception is a logo. The amount of times people have said to me, hey, Jack, can you make me a logo? And it's like, okay, a brand is not a logo, or sorry, a logo is not a brand. A logo is a symbol for a brand, but it is not a brand. And colors, typography, all these other things are really important brand assets that help create a brand identity, but a logo is not a brand. A product is not a brand. A lot of people talk about brand mergers, and I think that's problematic because it sounds like the brand is then a product that another company is buying, another brand is buying, and actually that's kind of deceiving. So a product, brand, not the same thing. And then marketing people, I used to work at Newcastle University doing marketing for them, and they talked about impressions, branding impressions, how many people have seen this, and confused these two ideas. And I think, yeah, of course, if a lot of a group of people see your brand, then that gives you impressions, but that isn't branding. And I think it's really key to understand what branding isn't to understand what it is. So this guy, Marty Neumeier, I don't know if anyone's actually read his books. He's got a book called The Brand Gap. He's got a book called Zag, both of which I'd really recommend. Maybe write in the chat if you've read these. But this quote for me is the closest thing to what a brand actually is. So a brand is a customer's gut feeling about a product, service, or company. So this idea that it's coming from the customer's perspective, and they are judging what your business is and how they feel as a result of coming into contact with your business, is actually what a brand is. It's more of a feeling. So maybe this idea is a little bit confusing, but when you try and create a brand, actually what you're doing is creating feelings of all these different people who encounter your brand, and those feelings matter. It's kind of like a reputation. So let's look at this image here. Most people dive straight into making colors and logos, and they're just like, yeah, I've now got a brand. But actually, they've forgotten that all of these things need to be rooted in something. There needs to be a real depth of knowledge about your specific customer, about why you're doing what you're doing, about what the mission is that you are trying to achieve, how you are trying to change the world through what you're doing. And that is going to inform the actual brand identity that you create, the logo, the colors, the typography, patterns, iconography, all of that stuff. But it needs to come from brand strategy first. So most people are essentially putting the horse before the cart. If you haven't got that by now from looking at this image, then sorry, I probably should have said that off the top. So this is basically what I work through with clients, right? It's a big, scary table, but don't worry. Essentially, you start left to right. And what we're going to do today is just ask questions that I ask clients about, because essentially everyone is trying to get to here, the visual expression stuff, but that cannot be made effectively unless you truly understand what you're doing from the get-go. You know, what is the goal that you have got for whatever you're trying to do? And that is going to inform the visuals, okay? So I hope that table isn't too scary, but these are all the things that I go through working with clients, and this is how I'd recommend you to start if you're trying to DIY your brand identity, looking here first. So we're going to go through some questions here, and this is where I want you guys to get involved here. This isn't a lecture. I want you guys to come off mic and talk to me a little bit, or write in the chat if you feel more comfortable. So essentially, brand strategy is what I want to hone in on, like I've said, and that is going to inform the how. So i.e., you know, starting to think about what people see, so your marketing strategy, sales funnels, etc., and then finally the logo, identity, website, etc. But this, you know, brand strategy you can't see, but when you think about Nike, it has a feeling, right? If you think about Nike creating a hotel, you can probably see it in your head. You probably know that there's going to be LeBron James on the wall in the entrance, and there's going to be all these amazing sporting figures. You can think about the colors, maybe even smells, maybe the kind of people that would go to this hotel. That's because Nike have thought so carefully about what their mission is, brand direction, user personas, all the people that use their brand, right? But it starts here, and I think this is a really good, if you're going to screenshot anything from this, I think this is probably the most useful slide. So most people know what they do. Some people know how they do it. A lot of people don't know why. This is Simon Sinek, who wrote a book called Start With Why. And it's really influenced like how I go about working with clients. So starting with the why, and that is going to inform the brand identity and what people actually see on the other end, customers. So we're going to try and get you to understand why you're doing what you're doing as clearly as possible, and then make you have that brand loyalty from your customer. So I'm going to kick off with the mission, right? So this is essentially what you're doing day in, day out to change the world in whatever way it is, right? So I want you guys to write down in the chat, or maybe come off onto the mic, and just talk about what your mission is with what you're trying to create. Because if you don't know your purpose, then frankly, your customer won't know, why you exist. And I think it's really, really important for the following questions to answer this primary question to start with. So, Max, maybe you could read out any of the comments that are in there, or if anyone wants to come off the mic and kick this thing off.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I guess I can kick us off. Yeah, because obviously you helped us out in terms of clarifying, what 100 days of no code is. I think our mission is definitely to essentially democratize or upskill entrepreneurs and citizen developers, and give them a platform to build their ideas and bring them to life. So I think Natalie, hers is definitely more succinct than mine. So helping launch 10 million more MVPs by 2025. Not sure if you have any comments on those two, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, well, Max, I know yours. So yeah, I think this democratizing the world of tech, and making people, putting tools into people's hands to create the world that they want to create is a really noble mission, and I think really important as well, especially with tech increasingly controlling our lives. And Natalie, sorry, can you repeat Natalie's?
Yes, yeah, of course. So helping launch 10 million more MVPs by 2025.
Okay, awesome. So I'm just going to take off my shoes. Great. They're really, really good to just kick off exactly what your mission is. So this is like the guiding compass of what you're doing. And I think a lot of people, like, they kind of, in the midst of actually trying to set up and deal with clients and all of this stuff, they might forget what their mission is. So, and I know it sounds kind of cliched, because it's like, oh, come on, Jack, like, I know what I'm doing, and I don't need this. Actually, if you just write this down, or I've seen companies where they have this printed across their office walls, it's kind of like the guiding compass of what you do. And I don't know if you guys are, if you know Herb Keller, maybe the Brits, if there's any Brits in there, may know him, but he is the CEO, well, was the CEO of, or founder of, Southwest Airlines, and his mission was to make the cheapest airline for like travelers. And it was really interesting. I listened to an interview with him where they were basically deciding what snacks should be on the airline, and he was like, does this help our customer like get the cheapest flight? Like, are the snacks really important? And he just came back to this mission that is, to try and create an airline that is cheap but imbues a sense of fun. And he was just like, okay, snacks, we don't like, this isn't important to our mission. So I think, like, it can go actually into the granular, and I do think it's really important to focus on this first.
Jack, we've got a couple of others just popped in the chat.
Oh yeah, sure.
So we've got GJ Sakura, who says, so I'm making a product hunt for crypto projects, which is a discovery platform for cool and new crypto projects. So yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, kind of if you had any thoughts on that, Jack, on that one. And then we also have one from Tony, but I'll get to that after your comments on GJ's one.
Okay. Well, I guess, I mean, it's great to know, like, what you do, but I think if we circle back to the question of why, is that because there's not, I mean, can you give us a little bit more information there about the crypto?
Yeah, sure. So it's like most of us know like what product hunt is regarding like being able to like to discover some of these like new like projects, whether it's no code, whether it's more like commercial or industrialized. Like the why of this is like you have, I guess, a subreddit called like Crypto Moonshots and a few other places where people publicize their stuff. But like the intent of this and the why behind this is to, I guess, get more exposure and uh, more people into these type of projects and to be able to share them on a grander scale.
Okay. Okay. So your mission is to, I guess, a little bit similar to Max, like um, put these crypto um, currencies into the tools of like everyday people who may not be like experts about them. Is that fair? Like
Yeah, that's
democratize
fair.
crypto.
Yeah, like product hunt is something that like I probably wouldn't have found some of the tools and platforms without that like structure and that publicity. So I feel like doing that for crypto is again another way of doing the same thing just with a different niche.
Okay, cool. So yeah, your mission could be um, something like we strive to make crypto um, approachable for everyday people, or like something along the lines of what are you doing each day to um, that is going to basically encapsulate what your company is all about. I think it's just really important to try and settle on something that's a really tight sentence that you could tell someone that you're hiring, like this is what we do and who it's for.
Okay.
And I think that would be like really helpful for you to just zone in on what you do, because say hypothetically, someone's like, oh, we could set up da 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 and it could be like a sub brand of whatever. Like, is that in line with your mission? Because if it's not, then you don't want to become a brand that's kind of got loads of random things on and doesn't really know what their core is. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. I think like the kind of like the what we do and who it's for is definitely a good framework to use.
And your mission is every day, right? Like, this is what your bread and butter is, this is what your core is. And I think it's just really helpful to think about your mission statement from the start, before you think about colors, before you think about anything visual, right? What do you do and for who? And that is going to guide your following decisions, right? So your why. So I don't know if you guys know who's on the screen. Just come off speaker and tell me who this is if you know. Does anyone know?
I don't know, Jack, but sorry, last one from Tony we had on the mission statement.
Okay.
Sorry to cut the flow there
No,
completely.
no, no. I mean, I definitely, I don't know why I can't see the chat. Sorry.
I
Okay,
think
carry on.
you can, yeah, I'll mention in a minute. But Tony kind of said, I think that that where this is where I fall down immediately. But he said, bring pub trivia online for remote teams as a team building exercise for his community trivia app is the best he could come up with. That's what he said. So yeah, I wasn't sure where you thought that, what you thought of that.
I think that's good. I mean, I think the more specific you can describe what you do and for who, the easier it is to then like guide the decision making in your business from there. Also, I mean, if you think about it, we're going to come on to target audiences, but if you understand what your mission is deeply, it's going to be far easier to talk effectively to a specific group of people that want you. And you don't need to sell yourself, because you know their pain points, you know what you're about, you know what they're about, and you know where they are as a result, right? Like,
Hmm.
I think it's so fundamental, this. So spending a bit of time just to try and really clarify what you do and who it's for, what is guiding your everyday and anyone you hire. And I think it's but I think that's really good, Tony. If you can maybe shorten that so it's idiot proof. I always think mission statements that are like just so clear and short if possible are great, but you've got the what and you've got the who, so I think that's really, really helpful. Sorry, Max, is there anyone else
No,
before
you're all good. You're all
ask
good.
the big question of this whole thing? Okay, anyone know who Tash Sultana is? Oh god, I've just given it away. I assume that no one knew. Sorry. Tash Sultana. Okay, I'm gonna maybe go on YouTube, Max, put a link to her playing. But this girl is insane. She's so passionate about what she does. And I put her up as the why question. Why do you do what you do? Because it's so clear from just looking at her, obviously on stage playing, like she's an incredible musician, but just look at that facial expression. And I think if you truly understand like why you are doing something, it is far, far easier to do it when you're starting something, because as you guys have probably found, it's far, far harder to break into a market or be a challenger brand or just set something up than maybe you thought when you first started. And if you have that real clear sense of why you're doing what you're doing from the get-go, it's going to be far, far easier on those dark nights to carry on. And also, I think energy is contagious, right? You're going to find founders, you're going to go to events because you just want to go to them, and you'll probably meet more people as a result, and things like that. And I know this sounds a bit cheesy because it sounds like the kind of thing your mum might say, like, just do what you love, honey. I don't know why I did an American voice. I'm sorry to offend any Americans in the room. But I just think really knowing your why from the get-go is so important. And it's also going to be far easier to hire people with that same passion for what they do, just like you, if you have a clear sense of why. So can you guys, it might sound a bit cheesy, but if you guys can write in the box what your why is. Why are you doing your project? Is it because it doesn't exist and you want to see it in the world? Is it because you want to make a shitload of money? What a noble goal. Is it because you just think that the world deserves your talented entrepreneurial activity? What is it? If you can write that in the box, maybe we could do the same thing. If Max could read them, that would be.
Yeah, of course. So maybe, yeah, and I'll kind of chuck one in the ring off the bat. So essentially want to help like non-tech key entrepreneurs bring their ideas to life. That's kind of the why. Yeah, I don't know if that's too small, too big, or like what how long a why needs to be, but I guess that's
why does that matter, Max?
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't think it does really.
No, but no, I'm not trying to put you down. I'm just saying, like, why is that a passion for you?
Okay. I think it's just because I've been there and just had the frustration of not being able to breach that technical gap from idea to execution until I found no code. So yeah, that's kind of the feeling it personally and then wanting to help others do the same thing. Yeah.
Great. We got our brand story right there. Does anyone else have any good whys?
Tony, I'm gonna. Well, actually, no. Sorry, I thought Tony had gone then. Yeah, if anyone has any like whys here, or Jack, if you kind of have any kind of criteria for people to kind of create their why, or yeah, that would be useful. But yeah, I guess it's something maybe people need to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I think this actually is hard. And if we go back to Simon Sinek's quote, a lot of people know what they do. Some people know how they do it, but very few people know why they do it. And I think that quote might sound a bit strange because it's kind of like, Jack, why is a bit, I'm doing it because it's a passion or a job or something. But if you just really dig deep into that and just work out like specifically why you're doing what you're doing, because this is going to get a bit deep, but we're going to die soon. And it's kind of helpful to think about how you're spending your time and why other people should care about what you do. Because if you don't truly like have that deep instilled like sense of what you're doing and why you're doing it, then I think it's going to be quite hard to get other people to care. So yeah, I think if anyone's struggling to find the answer to this why, then I think just reflecting, maybe have a bath, put some candles on, bath salts, that kind of thing, and just have a little think, because it's going to be really hard to set up a business if you don't have a really clear sense of why you're doing it. In fact, 90% of startups fail, and I can't help feeling that if you answer these fundamental questions from the get-go, then I feel like you've got a lot better chance of succeeding. Who cares? Now, this comes on from the why. I don't know if you guys have seen Ricky Gervais, the Golden Globes, and he just says, "I don't care," when he's offending everyone in the audience. So I put that there for reference, but maybe that went over people's heads. Anyway, if you ask yourself, who cares? Who is going to miss out by not having your brand in their life? If you really whittle that down, it's probably a very small group of people. Because I think a lot of people who I have like initial meetings with, they say, we want as many eyes on this as possible. Like we really want to just really ramp it up, just get customers. Okay, great. But who cares? Like, not everyone likes me, and I don't like everyone. So why should that be like different for brands? Okay. And if you really whittle down who cares, like who could not carry on without your brand, or who would benefit so much from your brand that they'd be willing to pay double for whatever your service or product is, then you have a really, really clear idea about what, who you're trying to talk to, and what messaging is going to really compel them to want to use your product or service and have that loyalty. There's this thing called the Rogers adoption curve. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but essentially you have the there's the earliest cohort that try out your product for the first time. And then it goes up in popularity when the earliest cohort tell everyone else about your product and spread the word, because word of mouth marketing is the most effective form of marketing, right? So yeah, of course, you may have a product that everyone could benefit from. That's great. That's epic. But at the start, when you are starting an idea, I think it's so important to ask yourself, okay, what is the smallest group of people that are going to have the maximum benefit from whatever my product or service is? Because those people are going to love it so much that they are going to tell their friends, right? But if at the start you're a bit wishy-washy about this, and you're a bit like, oh, well, I guess like men and women from like 24 to 45 might like this. Okay, that narrows it down. Let's really try and get granular about this. And I ask clients to then do a little exercise. So if your brand was a person, what would that person look like? What would that person smell like? Who would that person be friends with? And this is starting to think about the visual identity, but also what your values are as a brand, okay? So are you a cool surfer dude like Jack Johnson here? Are you tragic and sad like the guys in Peep Show? Are you sassy, loud and proud like Lizzo? Are you a bit mental like Conor McGregor? Or are you sophisticated like Idris Elba? Look at that suit, he is rocking that. But guys, jokes aside, like if you can really clearly identify who your brand would be if it was a person, then you're well on the way to thinking, okay, who would that brand be friends with, if it was a person? right? I bet Conor McGregor and Lizzo have completely different friends. But what I'm saying is that your customers are going to like you if you are very truly, you have a really clear sense of your own identity and your own values. And I think a really good example of this is Ben and Jerry's. Obviously, Ben and Jerry, they have like very big personalities themselves, the two founders. But they basically gave everyone extra scoops of ice cream when people went and bought from them the first time. They're like fat and funny people. They have a very, very clear idea of who they are and what they want their brand to be as a result, and how their brand talks, what political opinions their brand will have. All of these things are going to really influence how people think about you think about your brand, right? So this all seems a little bit like, oh, airy fairy. It's actually not at all. This is really crucial because this is going to influence what colors you choose, what your typography is going to look like, how you're going to talk, what your messaging is, how your website is going to be laid out, what animations you'll have, etc. All of these things matter. Okay. So does anyone have an idea of who their brand would be if it was a person? I'd be really intrigued to know. Maybe this is just too short notice and you guys are like, oh, I don't know. But if anyone does have an idea, I'd be really intrigued, because this question is always quite fun to ask.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So we've got Tony. So right now, Ron Livingston, character from Office Space. Is that meant to be The Office, or is Office Space a thing? I don't know, but fair play. And then GJ.
Max, you gotta see Office Space.
Is,
It might be a little young for you. It came out in '99, but it's like the ultimate.
So is that what you're sticking with, Tony?
Yeah.
Nice. So this might take. So GJ said this might take me time to think about. Office Space is a movie, right, Tony? Just yes. Tony nods. I think for me, 100 Days, it would be kind of solo, non-techie entrepreneurs that are bootstrapping their way to their business. That's in my head, but I can't think of an actual person at the moment.
Okay, so there's maybe I should have explained this better. So who cares is obviously your target audience, right? So if you can identify someone that has absolutely loved what you do, then you've got a really good idea of who really cares about what you do. And if you guys have started a business, then obviously this is easier, because you might have reviews on your website, you might have people that have messaged you on social media to say this has completely changed my life. If that hasn't happened, that is also completely fine. But I think it's just really, really important to nail from the beginning kind of who you're specifically trying to talk to. I think a lot of people that start brands, they say, well, we've got kind of 3 or 4 target audiences we can do. We cater to this type of businessman, we cater to lawyers. It's kind of like, if you've got such an array of target audiences from the start, it's really hard. Now, obviously, as you grow, you will probably identify particular types of people who are approaching you and really enjoying your product or service. But this is trying to think of a specific group of people, or maybe a single person that represents that group of people. So this is the target audience, right? But then this is, if your brand was a person, what would it be? So if you're, Jack Redley Design, that's me, right? So that's not a very good example. But, for example, the crypto business, maybe if you were thinking, okay, who would represent my brand? then I think it's quite useful, because you can think about, okay, who would this person be like? What, colors do they wear? What, and that might influence your visual identity, but also your values. So I hope that's clear. This is target audience specific, and this is your business actually looking like a human being. Does that help?
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. Yeah. Yeah, no, good stuff.
Okay. Well, I think maybe this needs a little bit of time to have a think about. But if you consider who would represent your brand, I think it's quite helpful, because then you can even look at their website, if they've got a website, or look at their social media, or how they talk on social media. And I think it's really, really helpful just to be like, okay, do I want to sound as sassy, loud and proud as Lizzo? And the reason why I chose really famous people is not just because they'll have a social media presence, and you can kind of get a real sense of, you kind of already know who they are, but also, I mean, they have a following, right? And if you look at personal brands, people like Conor McGregor, he has got the most loyal fans of well, I guess there's a lot of sportsmen with loyal fans, but his fans are mental. They'll burn down pubs for him and whatever. And if you think about that kind of loyalty, then wouldn't every brand want their fans to be the same? They're raving fans. So through these questions, we've looked at the purpose, why you do what you do, the mission you are on, the world you are trying to change, and for who, the vision, the destination you are trying to reach with whatever brand or website or whatever you're trying to do at the moment is, and then your values, the values that guide your business, who you want to associate yourself, what brand collaborations you might think about as a result of knowing your values. So these are the things that I think are really important to nail down at the start. And I know that maybe at the start of this talk, you thought we were going to get like a kind of Canva tutorial. I think these questions are far, far more important than here's how you make a logo. This stuff is what most people don't do, in my opinion. And I think that is where, all the colors in the world aren't going to help them. They need to be clear on what feelings they're trying to create in their customers, and who they're specifically trying to attract. And all of this stuff informs the brand identity. So yeah, like I said, we started here. There is a hell of a lot more that encompasses a brand. And we've touched on a few of these different things throughout this talk, but maybe a separate talk is needed, because I feel like we all need some time to digest stuff. If you guys want extra resources, though, I a zillion % recommend this book. Obviously, I'm biased because I quoted him earlier, but Marty Neumeier's book, Zag, is insanely helpful. And it's not a lot of, I mean, there's theory in it, but there's a lot of really interesting images and examples. It's not so heavy. Donald Miller's book, Building a Story Brand, is another one I'd hugely recommend. This comes more in the storytelling framework in this section. But again, coming back to the why of your business, why you do what you do, I think if people told their story more, then more people would be particularly loyal to a certain brand, because they understand why it came into existence and what it stands for. And then This is Marketing by Seth Godin. A lot of the ideas that I've talked about, obviously branding and marketing coincide a lot, but a lot of the kind of key ideas about what makes a company loved by people is in this book. And obviously it also has some quite helpful ways of thinking when it comes to social media marketing and email marketing and other things. So these 3 books, Zag, Building a Story Brand, and This is Marketing, are the 3 that I'd recommend if you had to get those on your shelf. Do it. And then, I've lost it right at the end. And then brand exploration. So this is what I do with clients. These are all the kind of questions that I ask people in like an initial meeting. And a lot of the questions that we've done today here, I've covered. But if you guys want this, I could give it to Max and maybe he could send it out as part of the newsletter, or I don't know what would be best, Max. I need to talk to you about that. But I think like if you take some time on these questions, it will really, I mean, obviously I'm biased saying this, but I really think it would help you guys have a clearer direction about what you do, how you do it, and your why. And this is going to influence your brand identity. If you just jump straight into, I like this color, oh, maybe this logo would be fun, let's do that, then I can't help but feeling that that is not going to have nearly as an effective result as thinking about this stuff previously. So I hope that was helpful, guys. And yeah, we've got a little bit of time for some questions and whatever if you guys want as well. I'll stop sharing now, shall I, Max?
Yeah, sure. No, thanks so much for that, Jack. Yeah, that was really cool. And yeah, we can work out how to send across those resources when people can just sort of have their own space and walk through them. No worries. See you in Slack. But yeah, does anyone have any questions for Jack? Yeah, just fire away.
God, I've bored them to death, Max.
No, you haven't. I'm sure you haven't. No, you definitely haven't. Me, I mean, for me, I think the key takeaway is just not like dashing into aesthetics. But it's easy to forget that, right? You've told me like a million times, Jack, and I still, natural instinct is to like go that way. But yeah, Tony, I see you're off mute. So maybe you have a question.
Yeah, it's this might be just like too large for just the subject matter at hand, but between like you say you have an idea for a product and you're like, okay, so we need to brand it. We can be like, well, we can wait until we've already built it, but then when you say, okay, we're going to build it in public, you've kind of got to like put the cart a little before the horse, because now you got to start branding before you've started building and kind of defined all those. So where would you put that, like in like the line? So like, okay, so I got my idea, I need to take it and start talking about it and try and get the early users for it. Because for the no code community specifically, you're usually talking about an app of some sort or less than a service. So you want to get those early users, those early beta testers. So building in public is important for that, but you've kind of got to have a brand. And again, that's where you just jump into Canva, be like, these colors work, logo, landing page, let's go and start building. But and maybe I don't really have a question here. Where would you start to align those questions that you're asking? Like, hey, mission, that, visual, when you kind of have to get some visual elements out there so early in the process, as that's becoming the more popular way to build. If I could,
yeah, that's a really good point, because I guess this whole, an MVP is essentially like a product that is not ready, right?
Yeah.
But I think there's got to be a distinction made between like a business or an app and a brand, and I think that's kind of coming back to what I said at the start. Like, if you're just trying to get something up and out there, then maybe having a reputation and stuff, that's not your priority. You're not trying to necessarily just build loyalty from people from the get-go. Maybe you're literally just trying to see if the app works. Now, yeah, that's different in my head from actually what a brand is. Like, if you think, for example, I mean, apps, I think are a different category, but if, say, hypothetically, we were going to set up a jewelry store together, or something that was very important to have like a feeling, you've got a physical product, then I think that's where thinking about this stuff a lot deeper matters a lot more. Like, you're going to have skin in the game because you've got a product, you've got a website that has e-commerce. There's a whole experience that needs to be had by the customer, and repeat customers are so important for anyone that's in e-commerce, right? So I guess like I completely hear what you're saying. Maybe if you just need someone to test whether buttons work and stuff, this stuff isn't nearly as critical. Now, where does that land us with the whole brand identity side of things? Actually choosing colors, having a logo, etc. I think, of course, colors influence feelings. People see colors first, shape second, context third. So colors, I think, would be the main thing that I think if you were going to spend any time on of this brand identity, if you just need to get something together, I think researching a little bit about color and like what feelings these different colors bring out, I think would be really important. But ultimately, like a logo is not that important. Like everyone talks about the Nike logo being worth X amount. It's not. It's all the other stuff, and that all those feelings are encompassed by the logo, which is the symbol for the brand, right? So if you just want someone to try something out, yeah, fine. If you just want to start something, throw it together, fine. But I think if you're trying to build brand loyalty and recognizability from a specific target audience, I can't help feeling that focusing on these questions more would be really important at the start. Does that help? I feel like I rambled a bit there.
Yeah, because I mean, just to distill that down in my brain, it's like basically you're saying don't worry about the mission and stuff as you're building, but don't worry about if you have to put visual things onto your thing, have good colors, and don't worry about what the logo is, because that can be changed.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, if you're just trying to get something up, test an idea, and it could be gone in a week because you're just like, hey, I'm going to test this thing, then you're not trying to build a reputation, are you? You're just trying to get testing. So yeah, maybe these things aren't as important then. Having said that, though, you might get feedback when you test something that's like, I loved this because of X. And it might be a 75-year-old woman that lives in Texas who, I don't know, has a son who's deaf, and you've got an app that like helps him in a certain way that you just never even considered. And that is going to bring you maybe to a clearer idea of what these questions are. Maybe you're like, holy shit, I was trying to make money, but actually I could really change someone's life here. And that is going to completely change your course. So yeah, MVPs, great. I think test stuff, but and maybe these questions aren't so relevant in that case. But I also think like if you're genuinely trying to build something long term, if you want something to last more than a year, I really think just taking a week to just think about this stuff is really, it's such a useful week in my mind.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jack. That was epic. Recording will be up kind of tomorrow or day after, sharing on YouTube, newsletter, all that good stuff. And no, thanks so much, and see you around in Slack somewhere this week.